Well, it seems like that there are other people coming around to the idea of West Virginia being special in 2026. ESPN made a prediction today that blew my mind. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Guys, welcome back in. My name is Mountaineer Paul. I am your host here, and welcome back into Locked On West Virginia, where we're talking Mountaineer football again today, and glad to be doing so on this Sunday afternoon. It looks so nice outside. It's getting a little cold, but that's okay. Unlike my guest, who's about to be under 2 feet of snow. Thanks for making Locked On West Virginia your first listen and for being a part of Locked On Podcast Network, where we're talking about your team and the Mountaineers every single day. But we can't stop there. We have to recognize the channel sponsor in Mazda. This episode brought to you by Mazda. We put the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. Thanks for making us your first listen, guys, and I am excited to talk about this with a good friend. Just a little kiss, Troy from Mountaineer Moment.
What's going on, brother? Appreciate you having me on yet again.
Yeah, man. We're on a roll here. So you're about to be under snow, so we better get this out before you die.
Before I lose power and who knows what. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to it, man.
Dude, that thing looks like a hurricane. I looked at on the radar. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh my God, it looks like a literal hurricane in snow form. So
that's
it looks
buddy
crazy.
Said he follows the weather real close. He was like, it's basically a Cat 1 hurricane, but it's snow.
Yeah, the winds are going to be 70 miles an hour. Like, it's crazy. All right. So speaking of crazy, I'm always looking for content as one does. And I came across this article when searching through Google. Prediction: Rich Rodriguez in West Virginia to have major bounce back year in 2026. And so I thought, well, what's this all about? And decided to see what they were kind of predicting for West Virginia. Basically, it's an article that's talking about all the reasons that they believe for West Virginia to have a big turnaround season in 2026. And there are multiple reasons for that. So I'm going to go over all those reasons that they personally feel is, a big advantage for West Virginia. And to be honest, man, I love it. I really do, because I think there are some things in here that I wasn't really thinking about, right? Like, that I just wasn't considering could happen. So let's go ahead and begin. I think at the end of the day, I'm not going to read it word for word. I'm just going to kind of hit on their high notes. But it says, prediction: Rich Rodriguez in West Virginia to have major bounce back year in 2026. Rich Rodriguez has built West Virginia before. In 2026, the pieces are aligning for him to do it again. After a transitional season filled with the roster reshuffling, quarterback questions, culture recalibration, the Mountaineers enter year 2 of Rodriguez's return with something they did not have a year ago: identity, continuity, and opportunity amid a flurry of incoming players as well. That combination could produce a significant jump. Number one reason why Rich Rodriguez could, or I guess it's the way they're phrasing it, West Virginia will have the bounce back year, Troy, then I'll let you go. Number one reason: Rick Trickett returns. And so does that old flavor, it says. One of the most important offseason additions wasn't almost 5-star recruit Kevin Brown. It was Rick Trickett. Bringing back the architect of those early dominant 2000s offensive lines signals more than nostalgia. It signals physicality, culture, and the return of an edge. Those 05 to 07 teams weren't just explosive, they were nasty up front. If Trickett restores even part of that trench dominance, West Virginia's offense becomes exponentially even more dangerous, especially in a tempo system that demands toughness and conditioning. This is about tone setting. So that's the first thing. Yeah. Like, I'm already, okay, come on, tell me more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. I think that I'm happy that they would go there first, because that's where I would go first. That's a big deal. And yeah. I think you and I would agree that, this team in 2025 had a plethora of issues,
a myriad,
top to bottom, and yet the offensive line was the one that sticks out the most. Like, it was so frustrating because it limited every other part of the offense, was how much that offensive line struggled. And man, if that changes, I think they're right. If that changes even I don't know what you said exactly, but from 05 to 07, like it was to like, part of that, there's going to be a significantly better offense. Rich Rod is too talented of a offensive mind to be limited when his offensive line's in decent shape. So I like the side of that.
I agree 1,000-fold. Obviously, I think the big thing for me was Rick Trickett was here for when we brought in the new guys, right? Like he was here for that. He actually got to sign off on them. I'm told that, and this is just a behind the scenes thing that I was told that, he wasn't involved on every single level scouting all these kids necessarily, but like the ones that signed, yeah, he was pretty much, right there with. So, there's going to be some that probably he wouldn't have that are maybe still here.
Right.
That doesn't mean he still can't mold them. And I do think there are guys that are already on the roster he's going to like. But I do think that there's a possibility exists where the 5 that go out there are 5 that nobody saw coming. And it could even be that nobody that was there last year could be on that. Or they all could be. Like every possibility is open. Mm-hmm. And the thing about, Trickett too, he's kind of a positionless coach in a way. They literally love to have guys that can play tackle and guard.
Yep.
So I think that you're going to see guys playing all positions. They're going to mix it up all offseason until they figure it out. So reason number 2, and I thought this to be an interesting reason number 2, because there will be a lot of people that would disagree with this. So quarterback stability and 2 real options is what it says. For the first time in a while, West Virginia may not just have a quarterback. They may have 2. Mike Hawkins Jr. arrives with intrigue and unfinished business. Some around the SEC believed he was underutilized in Norman, which if you guys saw the show, I did, by the way. I did do a show with Teddy Lehman. He's the play-by-play color guy for them. He came on here and said that, listen, he kicked Mateer's butt in practice on more than one occasion. So take that for what you will.
Yeah.
His ability introduces something West Virginia hasn't had in the system in years. A true Denard Robinson-style running threat from the quarterback position. So they didn't say Pat White. That changes the defensive math. Meanwhile, Scotty Fox Jr. enters year 2 in the system. Sources within the program believe he will make a significant leap after a full offseason in the scheme. Experience matters in Rodriguez's offense, and year 1 is an adjustment. Year 2 is acceleration. Whether it's Hawkins' explosiveness or Fox's command, the Mountaineers appear better positioned under center than they were a year ago. And in this offense, that's everything. So what do you say to that?
Well, I think the story coming out of 2025 and the, age-old saying, when you got 5 quarterbacks, you got none. And here in 2026, to at least know that it really is between these 2, even as we sit in February, that this is a legit competition between 2 guys who are going to battle it out. And each one have things that they bring to the table that are intriguing and that you're excited about the potential for. Mike Hawkins, obviously, with the speed and just ability to do pretty special things with his legs, and can't wait to see what he brings to the passing attack too. And then Scotty Fox, as they mentioned in that article, year 2, right? He was our guy the second half of the season, and he had some bright spots, man. So I think it's either way you go right now. There's if you support one or the other at this moment in time, or both, there's great reason to be excited. So I agree with that.
I like this one too. A top 25 recruiting class with immediate help. National analysts took notice around the country after Penn State lost several players after James Franklin's announcement of him leaving Penn State. It doesn't say that, but I'm saying that. And then it said took notice of West Virginia's top 25 recruiting class, and it may pay dividends faster than expected. Christopher Talley, they mentioned him again. I did a show on him a week ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever. Christopher Talley was mentioned in the ESPN article where they were talking about the most, the best running backs in the country, like from high school. They mentioned Savion however you say his name, Hitter, not Hitler. Sorry. Savion Hitter and another running back that's going to Texas. But then the third one they named was him. And I'm thinking over all the other guys we got, not a Mari, not, the kid from JUCO, the Boswell, like they hit Talley again here. So he says Christopher Talley brings early impact potential, Kevin Brown adds size, physicality, and a pedigree. Several junior college additions could provide immediate depth in areas that felt thin last season. And what looks questionable on paper today may look experienced by mid-October. Rodriguez's first run in Morgantown featured under-recruited players who developed quickly and played fearlessly. There's a belief this class could follow a similar path. This article is kind of glazing, man.
That's exactly
I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
Anyway, Go ahead.
No, I mean, I guess you could have, based on the title of the article alone, could have guessed that. But no, I mean, you and I would both agree that this has been a productive offseason. After year one, whether you call it year 0, year 1, whatever for Rich Rod previously, man, there's a lots of guys to be excited about. Even some names, right, that they're mentioning in this article that aren't even as on our radar as other guys in that running back room, like you mentioned too. So there's a lot there, a lot of potential. And, I think you and I have talked about this previously too. I think one of the things that makes it different from last year, where we were excited about some of the guys that we brought in that didn't exactly pan out, is that there's more of a healthy balance between going and getting guys in the portal versus just going and getting anybody you can get your hands on, and an incoming freshman recruiting class that you're really, really excited about. So, and the potential for growth and potential for improvement as they hopefully stay Mountaineers for a few years. So,
absolutely. I was trying to remember the running back's name from memory. So, I mean, when you read it, it does seem like, that's, I guess, what is that called whenever your mind tries to predict things? Like when you're reading it, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I think that's what happened when I was trying to remember that running back's name, because obviously, just not a great name to just say, but yeah, obviously that's not what I meant. So going back to some of this, what they're saying here, obviously now they're talking about the schedule. It says the schedule window is real. It says if you're looking for a breakout, you need opportunity. West Virginia has it. 7 home games. 5 of the first 7 games are at home. In Big 12 play, the Mountaineers host Oklahoma State, Arizona, Cincinnati, Kansas, and Houston. That's the bulk of their potentially winnable conference matchups at home. The tougher road trips, Iowa State, TCU, Texas Tech, and Utah. And it even says, and even the neutral site game in Charlotte feels more like a home away from home than a hostile road environment. Momentum matters early. If West Virginia can stack wins in September and early October, confidence builds quickly. The schedule gives them that runway.
Yeah, 7 home games is a big deal. That we like the sound of that. Tough road stretch, certainly. But, man, you got to play. You got to go on the road at some point. You got to, hopefully look to knock off a team or 2 on that. But, that's something to keep an eye on, certainly, because as we know in Rich Rod's career, his teams improve. And they're mentioned in there in that article, it's important to get off to a hot start. So certainly with the favorable schedule early, that's going to be even more important, because maybe on the back half, we can go steal a game or 2 on the road because we're going to be firing on all cylinders at that point, hopefully.
So obviously when I'm doing a show on my own, I don't really have time to look at chat, but I will answer a question for you guys. A lot of you are asking about Teron Francis. I was told he'll be back for spring. So for everybody that wants to know, I mean, I've had to answer it a few times now. This is from In the Building. He'll be back for spring. So at least that's the expectation. And he probably wouldn't have been on an e-bike if it was really severe, right? He probably would have been on more like crutches or something. Because an e-bike can be, if you've ever used one, if you've got a really bad injury, it can still be really painful to use one just because of gravity, the way gravity works. If your knee's up on something and let's say it's your ankle, just your ankle hanging down like that can at least it was for me. Anyways, I would imagine that he would either be in a wheelchair or on crutches if it was worse than it was. And like I said, I was just told that he would, not just now, but I was told that he would be back by then. We'll go to break really quick and finish this thing off. And then because they do describe what they see as a major surge or whatever. So I do think that even though the article is very favorable, it kind of brings it back down to earth a little bit. We'll talk about what that means next. All right, guys, on this one, obviously, we got to be talking about our friends at Mazda. And right now with Mazda, we got to understand that Mazda is moving the game forward. For those who know, there's more to the score than what's on screen. These remind us of what it really takes to raise the bar. It's that extra work off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, and I never quit. We put that same passion into every model. Highlights make the reel. What it took to get there makes it count. And there's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. And of course, our friends at Indeed say hello. And why wouldn't they? Because right now it is time for your job to be listed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up for you, inboxes overflowing. Well, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. Pretty good stuff, right? Here's a stat that says it all. The minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, you can spend less time searching, more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing people. You'll get less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about it right here on Locked On West Virginia. Indeed.com/podcast where the terms and conditions apply. Do you need a hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And of course, we are in segment 2. And in every segment 2, I like to crack a do to you, Troy, so that you can tell the people what you're up to. Besides church, 2 feet of snow, the whole thing.
Yeah, it's pretty much my life this weekend. And
church and 2 feet of snow.
That's right. So gearing up for that. And then, yeah, dude, I'll say too, man, I appreciate you again having me on, and always great friend, great person, and love being able to work with you on Locked On West Virginia, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so a lot of people asking what this is about, what we're talking about, and I understand that. So we will go over it again. I came across an article earlier today that says prediction Rich Rodriguez in West Virginia to have major bounce back year in 2026. February 22nd, 2026 article. So it's just turned today. And I've been kind of going over the things that they had to say about West Virginia, the reasoning for that, and what that looks like, because there is a lot to it and it's pretty involved, very well-researched article, as well as anybody I've ever seen do, honestly. So it's really good. But I do think that it does come back to earth a little bit, which is what we're going to talk about here, Troy. One of the final positive things, that's said here is, quote, national writers ignore it, but Rodriguez's first tenure from 05 to 07 elevated West Virginia to national relevance.
Yep.
He understands Morgantown. He understands the fan base. He understands how to win here. There's a redemption arc built into this return. And if year 2 produces a leap, it reinforces the idea that his system simply fits the program. That narrative writes itself. That is one of the coolest takes I've ever seen. I love that take because it is a redemption arc. It is built into itself. And if he can win again, then it's just the match. It's just we're a match. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And obviously Ren and all of us are hoping for that, right? That we didn't go bring Rich Rod back just to be mediocre. We didn't bring him back to, well, let's give it a go. Like we brought him back to win and bring us back to national relevance. That is the goal. Make no mistake about it. So let's get after it.
Yeah, I'm excited about this, man. This stuff like this gets me going, and my expectations will get to going crazy. So the last thing is, so what does major actually mean? It says not bowl eligibility, not 6 and 6. If this is, they're talking about 8 to 9 wins in that ballpark. Potentially Big 12 dark horse contention. and possibly ranked at some point this season and playing meaningful games in November. The schedule allows for that, is what it says. So, obviously that to me is a major surge compared to what last year was. What are your thoughts? Obviously we can go across, we can look back at like the article and kind of just point to the bullet points of kind of where it said the major things. It talked about Rick Trickett. It talked about quarterback stability. It talked about the top 25 recruiting class, the schedule window, which I think a lot of people see that now.
Right.
Then it tied in the emotional narrative, which is like Rich Rodriguez and the potential that we're just a match for him and he's a match for us. I think the schedule window part of it, like it says, 7 home games, 5 of the first 7 are at home. You don't even play on the road until Iowa State. So that is crazy. The bulk of your matchups are at home that you can win. The road trips are Iowa State, which is not a tough trip this year.
Right.
At least it would be a total shock. Let's just say that.
Yep.
TCU, Texas Tech, and Utah. So those are the road games. And says, the neutral, and then also obviously the neutral site game against Virginia is a game where you should have a larger home fan base in that game. 60-40 is what I'm guessing it'll be. It doesn't sound logical, but when you go back to the Duke's Mayo Bowl and see what happened when West Virginia played North Carolina, there was, I think, 70,000 people there, and that was 80-20 West Virginia. So, I do think that there's a lot of good stuff there. But, a couple of things I'll say that I think it missed on was obviously, I don't know, if I was looking for positives, I would say probably, maybe name some of the specific offensive linemen is something. The wide receiver room, obviously, it's not like I expected anybody to go position room by position room necessarily, but there are questions on this team. I guess if you want to push back against it, obviously, maybe let's take that route for a minute, Troy. If you want to push back against this article, if you're going to be a negative Nelly, what are some things you would attack?
Well, I think like we've already experienced and like programs all across the country experience, simply whether, no matter how talented they are, you bring in 60, 70, 80 new guys onto a team, how quickly it gels is not a guarantee. And so even though there's a quote unquote favorable kind of schedule and you don't have many road games, early on, especially, like, even though that's the case, sometimes it just don't work. Sometimes it just doesn't click, especially early on. And so we could see that. You could also make the argument that with these two quarterbacks, they make the point on that. Well, Hawkins didn't start at Oklahoma for a reason, no matter what people would say about it, and then Scotty Fox, people would say he's not the fit for Rich Rodriguez's system, and they could very well be right. And so I think those two things maybe could be your counter argument.
People are asking questions in the chat about my responsiveness to chat. Maybe I haven't said this in a while. I used to be very responsive to chat, but it's been trained out of me, just because the job, not unfortunately at all. It's not unfortunate. Unfortunately for the chat, the way it works is they want us to do a 30-minute show like there's nobody else here, right? And it's just, you're just doing the show. And the way they want us to promote it is, if you want to interact with me, there are ways that we're building into the show that you can do that, like either in my own personal Discord or on the Everydayer Club. But like during the show, I'm just not supposed to talk to the people. It's been a tough habit for me to break out of, trust me, especially because I go live a lot. But so it's been tough. But at the end of the day, man, I think it does make for a better show when somebody's not talking to the chat all the time, especially when you consider half of my audience is audio only. And for them, it's disorienting when I'm just, because I have the bad habit of, I'll just read what somebody says and respond, assuming everybody can see it. When in reality, that's not the case, especially if you're listening. It's just not how it works. So, Give me a best case, worst case, really quick, Troy. Based off this article, if you want, or
Sure.
just this far out, or you can do 30,000 foot view, you can do a vacuum, whatever you want, but or you can give me, you can make case for each, whatever you want to do.
Right. Yeah. So I think it's kind of funny because when you mentioned the article to me, before we went live, and I began thinking myself about, well, best case, worst case, like what does ESPN really mean by that? What are they kind of thinking through at this moment? And when you got to that last portion of the article that you read, the thing that was in my head right when you first, messaged me today, was in relation to like, okay, what's the ceiling? What's the best case scenario for this team? And one of the things they mentioned in the article was meaningful games in November. And that's literally the thought that came to my head. That would be a goal, right? Is it a little maybe too, like maybe dark horse is an appropriate name for what West Virginia could be in the Big 12.
Yeah.
Is it a little too far-fetched to think they're going to go and win the Big 12 title? I think so. But meaningful games in November, ranked opponents, and you're ranked, and it's a showdown in November, that means something. And I think that would be a realistic expectation for you to have for this team. And then the second thing I'll mention again with this schedule, because I just looked at it again too, man. Again, your first true road game is Iowa State, October 3rd. Then you're back at home for 2 more. And then you hit the road again on October 24th against TCU. So between season opener and October 23rd, you have 1 true road game. And so you have to take advantage of that. You want to avoid a slip up. Again, whether it's one of these non-conference opponents, Virginia in a neutral site game, you got Oklahoma State, then you got Iowa State, who again, we aren't expecting them to be super good this year. So you got to take advantage of that. I think the article hits the nail on the head. Like, that is such an important start to the season. If you go 4-0, 5-0, and then things get interesting. Then you start having those conversations. Then you start looking ahead and thinking, okay, maybe this team can play some meaningful games in November. A place.
It looks like we lost Troy there. There he is.
There I am. I was just wrapping up saying that's a place you haven't been in a long time, is meaningful games in November.
Absolutely. 100% agree, man. One more break, guys. We'll come right back. We'll finish, put a bow on this one here with Troy from Mountaineer Moment. All right, guys. FanDuel was going to say hello on this one, and for good reason. We love FanDuel, don't we? Because, right now, this time of year, things can be pretty tough. And if you've ever wanted to experience NBA Finals live and in person, FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win the NBA Finals trip or 2. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures, and this is the time of year, whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title, that it adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. Now, not only can you pick your cash, you can send it to the finals as well, send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on any NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the finals. Play your game with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. And, of course, we're back here with Troy from Mountaineer Moment, who may be experiencing a hurricane in snow form already, as his internet seems to be messing up just a bit. Putting a bow on this, I find it interesting that, this article comes out right before spring, and we're going to get a lot of, we're going to get answers to a lot of the questions, right? And so what I thought I would do here is, while we've got a decent amount of people still in here, is I am going to, as soon as I can get it pulled up here, I'm going to pull up the roster, and then I am going to, there we go. I'm going to go up and down and then ask you about some spring questions, Troy. Is that cool with you?
Sure.
All right. Let me get everything set here. Give me 2 seconds. I think there are some interesting questions about spring. Obviously, we've asked some of them, but there are always so many different ways, because the roster's so big and there's so many new people. you can really, in my opinion, tailor it kind of however you want. So 1 second here. Let me get this set up. Boom. Let me exit out of that. Okay. There we go. All right. All right. So let's start in the quarterback room, I guess. Obviously Hawkins Jr. and Scotty Fox Jr. are number 1 and number 2 in any order you want to put. Who do you think is going to win the battle for number 3? You've got Max Brown, you've got Jaron Hughley, you've got John Johnson III, you've got Wyatt Walker Brown as well.
Right. I'd have to go with Max Brown at this particular moment. Got the most experience at that position.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think I'm going to pick a freshman.
I do like too bad.
Huh? What is it? Yeah, you might be a little behind me here.
It's getting rough.
Okay. Well, hey, look, man, I can see you on the next one. No big deal.
All right.
So unfortunately Troy couldn't stick around for the rest of the show, but things happen. If I can get myself back on the screen later, buddy. Later. So this is a mess at the end here. Oh God. There we go. I think we got him out now. The internet, I don't know what's happening there. Unfortunately things they're going down there, but I can get him to remove from out of here. Let's see. There we go. There we go. I think we got him out of there now. All right, we're good. I couldn't get it to kick him out of the studio. He was still in there. All right. Back to this really quick. Without my guest, I guess I'll just do it. Obviously, the running back room, who's going to be second behind Cam Cook is the question. That's the toughest question of them all. If you leave it up to ESPN, they like Christopher Talley. I'll go with, man, it's tough. I would probably say Latimer for now, just because I think he's got the most hype. And also I love his build. It's different than everybody else's, but it's certainly not an easy pick, right? So I'm not saying it's easy. Fullback is only one guy. Wide receiver, people are asking about wide receivers today, and one of them was Teron Francis, who to me is obviously could be a huge loss for West Virginia if he stayed out any longer than he already is. But I do think that he will be one of the starters come beginning of the season with Jaden Bray and Prince Strawn, or maybe one of the JUCO guys. There's a bunch of different ways you could go with that. And all that. So we'll go ahead, and since Troy's out of here, I kind of wanted to do the question and answering with a guest. I think I'm going to just go ahead and save the rest of the questions until another episode, because we're already 33 minutes in. We might as well just go and end it now and come back on another episode. But for those of you that got in late, we were just talking about this article that I found, talking about West Virginia's prediction in 2026. So should be interesting going forward and seeing what if we can hold that to any kind of standard, because I do think ESPN has been, at least in the past, very not good to West Virginia. So it'll be interesting to see if this good publicity, maybe because Pat McAfee's there, I don't know. We'll be interested to see if that continues. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and go. Thank you so much for being here. Proud to be American today. Great for U.S. hockey, even though I know a lot of us don't follow hockey. Still want to be supportive of that and, see what happens with U.S. hockey in the future. I think it's definitely something that most Americans would get behind if there was more teaching about it, outside of the states that only play hockey. If it maybe can become like, soccer, where more people know about it now, because the play-to-play part of the hockey is. It's an exciting sport, but it's like football. If you don't know what the context is, right, it's just more difficult to understand the game itself. So, all right, y'all. Thanks for making us your first listen. Like, share, subscribe. Make sure you check out Locked On College Football next. And we'll see you here on the next one here on Locked On West Virginia, where we're talking about your team every single day. Don't forget to cue those country roads. We'll see you next time.